Are we ready?
I have no idea.
Are we live? I think we are. Good afternoon. Welcome to another Friday afternoon Grays of Westminster live stream. I am Becky. Your turn.
My turn. I'm Constantine.
I
Yes.
thought you were going to just chime in there. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. I see you've all been very busy saying hello to each other in the comments. Hello from us and to you regulars. Are we prepared for today? We are doing a very exciting giveaway this week.
Yes.
We're giving away a copy, limited edition run on these books, a copy of the Tony Hurst Nikon 100th anniversary images book. This is a selection of some of the finest of Tony's work. Now, if you don't know Tony Hurst, he is, I would say, a fine art photographer. He's the one that manages to make cameras look absolutely stunning, no matter what kind of camera or lens they are. So if you would like to win this book, then just let us know in the comment that you would like to win. Say, I would like to win, and then we will draw your name out of something.
Yes.
By the end, a receptacle.
Yeah.
By the end of the
normally this book would be presented by a bikini model,
Yes.
but you have me
and Christmas
so
jumpers
to you.
So that's there for you to win by the end of the stream. I think that's a very nice giveaway.
I think so. It's a limited run, so not many people have it, and there's some wonderful work in there.
There's some stunning images, and there's one in particular which I won't show you now, but it's like a sardine can.
Oh yes, sardine can full of lenses.
And then there's one which has the 51.1s, I think it is, the rangefinder lenses, and there's 9 of them in that picture, and there were genuinely 9 of them there.
And you can't buy it in Sainsbury's or Tesco's.
No, it's not very easy to get hold of. Now, we are experiencing some internet issues in London, so if things are a little bit slower, please bear with us, but hopefully the stream will hold up despite the internet problems. So what are we talking about today?
Well, if you thought, is that the right time for a Christmas jumper? You know it is.
Yes.
Because we are here for you.
With Christmas jumpers.
With a Christmas jumper.
Mine's
and
a little bit
cheer.
more understated than yours. Mine has a little reindeer on it.
Went all colourful.
You really did. Next week I'll try and match you in terms of colourfulness.
Oh, I have another jumper prepared for next week.
Oh, you do?
It's
Okay.
going to top this one.
It's going to upstage me completely.
Got to shine somehow, you know.
That's right. Well, I'm literally sparkling, although the light doesn't really catch it. Anyway, so the Christmas is the theme, and we thought we'd give you some ideas, some tips and tricks of and inspiration, I would say. Inspiration for what you can do over the holidays to take pictures of friends, family, how to get the most out of your camera for taking pictures of those Christmas decorations. We've got a few slightly off the wall different things to suggest.
Like use your camera.
Like use your camera, that's right. You know what I forgot to talk about? The Christmas stocking coffee fund.
Well, we've got one of these.
We've got one of those. This little stocking here fills up. So if you want to contribute to the coffee fund, you can do. We do appreciate it. Yes, that's it. That was my plug for that.
I like coffee. I like Christmas. I like funds.
That's right. We like funds, Christmas and coffee. All good things. And mince pies.
Mince pies all round.
I'm sorry the tree glasses aren't real. They were just superimposed. Maybe I can get hold of some Christmas tree glasses for next week's stream just for you.
Well, you never know. Maybe after this stream, if Christmas stocking is full, you may get some
exactly. I might be able to pick some up from around the corner.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm going to not look at the comments for a few minutes because it's very distracting, but I love how all of you are engaging. It's fantastic. So the first thing we're going to talk about today
Christmas jumpers.
It's not Christmas jumpers.
Are you wearing one? We want to see the pictures.
We do.
Please do send them to us.
But we're going to talk about how you can take pictures in natural light, whether it's a Christmassy portrait or a family portrait that doesn't have to be Christmassy. It's funny, a lot of the adverts that I've noticed, I get a lot of ads on Instagram for photography courses, and they all say, think of photography as a way of making memories, not just taking a picture. And I was like, that's quite appropriate for this time period. You want to make memories with your pictures. And we want to use it wasn't supposed to be like some deep and
I went on the memory lane, I think,
so we thought we'd talk about natural light portraiture and natural lighting first. So sun's flash. You're going to talk about flash afterwards. So some tips for you. If you are, let's say, having I would say maybe not visiting the family, but if you've got family around at Christmas time,
Yes.
bearing in mind the rules and regulations, people, please stay safe out there, then you might want to capture the moment by taking a few portraits by the Christmas tree.
Yes.
Yes. You just...
So we're talking flash now.
No, we're talking about natural light.
Natural light. So you've got two options. So you can shoot during the day and you can shoot at night. And there are two different setups you can do.
Yeah.
So let's start, like, let's say with the day photography.
Daytime, exactly. So whether you're going on your Christmas walk or, you know, it's first thing in the morning, opening presents and stuff like that, I've found particularly more recently, the light is very, to use a posh word, diffused, but it actually just means it's grey outside and there's lots of cloud cover. So you get that very soft light.
Yeah, it's like a giant softbox.
Exactly, in the
just light
sky.
through your window, absolutely.
So opening up all the windows, raising the blinds, opening the curtains and all that kind of stuff will allow you to get all that lovely light into the room.
Absolutely. I think it's the best quality of light.
Yeah.
And what you may want to play with it when you're taking shots like this, if they do come out a little bit gray or dark, do use your exposure compensation. So there's no need to go for full bad. No, I know you all can do that.
Yeah.
But if you shoot on aperture priority and let's say the skin tones come out a bit dark or in the shade, let's say, you know, then do use your exposure compensation. And depending on lighting, you may need to compensate to 1/2 of a stop or maybe a full stop.
Yes, very true. So it's interesting how different people sort of change their compensation differently. Some people use the exposure compensation button. Other people, like me, will just adjust something else. You know, I'll either adjust the aperture or the ISO or the shutter speed.
I live by exposure compensation.
But exposure compensation is very helpful. It's basically a quick way to adjust your shutter speed without adjusting your shutter speed, really, because that's essentially what it's doing, allowing you to keep the same aperture. So if you do want that lovely, let's say I was going to take a picture of you by a window, which we don't have here.
Looking mysterious.
Looking mysterious and nostalgic.
Yes.
Then I might want to shoot at a reasonably wide open aperture. And depending on how much light is coming through and keeping my ISO as low as I can possibly go, that's generally how I shoot, trying to stick.
I think shallow depths of field is kind of goes like a lot of Christmas photography we will use shallow depths of field for, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And you know, Christmas lights and all that kind of stuff work really nicely as, I think everybody knows what the word bokeh means. If you're not very technical, it is the out of focus highlights and sources of light in your picture. I'm going to prepare.
You're going to pronounce it in French?
No. But what I thought I would do is just very quickly switch over to, if I can remember my shortcut. There we go. So that is an example of bokeh. This is when you literally just type in bokeh effect in Google. But that is very easy to achieve if you've got Christmas lights. So if you've got somebody standing in front of the Christmas tree, for example, just pull them a little bit away from the Christmas tree, open up that aperture as wide as you want.
Maybe zoom in a little bit more. So while you're zooming in, your depth of field also become a little bit more shallow.
Exactly. So you're standing further away from the subject, but you're actually zooming. If you use the closest focusing distance of the lens as well, so the closer you physically are to the subject, the shallower your depth of field will become. And then you'll get that lovely lighting effect with your Christmas lights. So that's...
I agree. And then, use your window as your main, let's say, source of light. But let's say if you're shooting in the evening, you can either use artificial light source like a lamp or use a flash.
Yeah, exactly. So we will talk about flash momentarily. But when it comes to no flash, that's daytime. That pretty much covers daytime.
Yeah.
Light runs out pretty quickly on Christmas Day. It kind of gets
dark
around.
England, isn't it?
Yeah, in England it gets dark around 3 o'clock. I mean, we're not in sort of, you know, the Northern Europe where
we're not in Sweden.
We're not in Sweden or Norway where it gets dark pretty much. There's almost no light at certain points of winter. But it does get very dark around 3 o'clock, I would say. Our time. It's usually starting to get dark by the time we finish the stream. So for nighttime portraits, again, if you don't have flash or you don't want to use flash, then it's going to be a matter of supplying as much light as possible.
Exactly. And Christmas lights would work quite well with it.
Exactly.
So basically the general idea there is to use very shallow depths of field. So depending on your lens, obviously if your lens can go to 1.4, use that. If your lens only goes to something like 5.6, well, you may have to do with that. you will need to increase your ISO setting, and that's just to allow more light in. And you not only obviously get better exposure, you also will get more ambience from the light coming through all those yellows and oranges. And then if you put a person, let's say, alongside the tree, so the light from the Christmas tree would spill on the face, then you can get really nice results with it. But you can, of
Exactly.
course, as well use a flash to lead the subject, but we'll cover that a little bit later.
Now, just to show you an example here, these are portraits that are taken with Christmas lights, basically. There's a ton of tutorials online, but just as a really quick snapshot of the kind of thing that you can do by using Christmas lights and using a very shallow depth of field, you can actually get some really exciting effects without ever having to touch the flash, which is quite nice. I do have to just make a quick mention. Thank you very much to Travis for your contribution to the coffee fund. I'm very sorry that the plastic door latch on your F100 saw its demise. I'm guessing because you're paying in US dollars, you're probably in the US of A. There are a few places that might be able to fix it over there.
Yeah, try
hopefully.
B&H as well, see if they have a spare part.
Yeah,
you know.
that's very true. But sorry to hear that. But thank you so much for your contribution to the coffee fund. Figgies.com says their first Nikon PC lens has just arrived, but won't be leaving until we finish the broadcast. Thank you for sticking with us. Andy points out, yes, spot metering is very helpful in those situations, particularly if you are using the correct metering is helpful regardless, but it just tells the camera what part of the frame to meter off of. So if you're using matrix metering and everything is very dark, then the camera is going to overexpose. Whereas if you use spot metering or center weighted, if your subject's in the middle, but center weighted, I'd say is a bit old school.
I think if we kind of split it into two categories, let's say the beginner photographers and then advanced photographers. So for beginners photographers, we would advise use aperture priority, take a shot, see if it's too dark. If it's too dark, you can check it real quick within 1 second of taking the shot. Use exposure compensation. If you're an advanced photographer, you can go into what sports metering. I know that spot metering can be tricky for people who just start in photography. So there are two options you can do. So if you want to take it next level, definitely stick with the spot metering. But if you're just beginner, then use exposure compensation. Speaking of exposure compensation, make sure that when you set exposure compensation to whatever value you set, as say plus 0.7, so 2/3 of a stop, it will stay there until you will return it to normal, to zero. So a lot of people, let's say they were shooting at night, and then let's say they woke up the next morning, they come out, let's say they want to take pictures outside, and they just come out overexposed or underexposed.
That's right.
And that's exposure compensation that hasn't changed from the value you set it before. So you need to make sure that you set it to zero.
Yes, exactly. That's it's not one of those things that resets itself, but just once you've finished using it, you do have to remember that you've done that. So many a time I've had to advise people to check that. Now, let's just see. Oh, John Hughes has actually been very patient and not even opened his Z7 II yet. John, so much restraint.
Well, take the battery out, put it on charge, and then you can enjoy the stream.
Exactly, you can enjoy the stream. I'm looking forward to seeing your results from that. So that is, I think, natural. We've kind of covered natural light.
Natural photography, for, again, just a kind of natural light at night, you may need to use a tripod. So keep that in mind. You may need to use long exposure. And obviously, if you're photographing a person, so you can't use long exposure, do make sure that to increase your ISO. Obviously, cameras are so good nowadays that you can shoot at 6400 ISO and the image is going to come out really nice. In terms of white balance, you may want to set it to incandescent or tungsten, depending on the lights you use. But even also white balance will do a reasonably good job, and you can always slightly adjust it. You'll get you 90% there, and then you can adjust in the post.
Exactly. AM says, I like to keep subjects on edge. Do a 30-second exposure and ask them not to move.
Don't breathe.
Like, do not blink, whatever you do. It's quite difficult to do when you've got children under the age of about... Actually, any age, but it's definitely under the age of 11.
Well, I call kids photography wildlife photography.
Wildlife photography, different type of wildlife.
The same rules apply.
Yeah, it's very true.
High frame rate, continuous focusing.
And super fast shutter speed. It's true. Brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Ian, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund as well. We have Californians, Arizonians, we have We have people from all over the place. There was some. We have Greek.
Welcome to Greece. Welcome to the United States.
We have New York.
New York.
New York. We've got people from all corners of the globe. Thank you very much for joining us
Thank
this
you for joining
afternoon.
us.
We really appreciate it.
And yeah, in the United States, you have to get up quite early, isn't
You
it?
do. That's dedication for you. Particularly if you're on the West Coast, then
That's true.
really early. If you're on the East Coast, it's not terrible.
Was it 9 a.m. in New York right now? Yep.
Yeah, about that. Roy says natural light is better with a flash. Now, we are going to talk about flash photography and how you can kind of help things along a bit. But one moment, please, before we get to that point.
We have the plan.
Now, Sharif says that spot metering never works. Spot just looks at me and refuses to tell the exposure. It's a dog.
Yeah.
Spot. Don't use your dog as an exposure meter. That won't work. Australia, Egypt, Sweden,
wow.
Connecticut, Amsterdam. I wish that I'd known that at the beginning. I would have done a shout out to everyone. I have to give. Sorry, I'm just going to digress.
Yes.
You love it when I do this. Go off
Of
script.
course.
I have to give a massive shout out to Dixon, who comes up as his handle is something different. But anyway, he knows who he is, for sending me some C41 chemicals.
C41.
Which I could not get in the UK. Sent them for my new lab box, which is my Christmas present to myself from my parents. Thank you, Mum. Thank you, Dad. Which I will be opening on Christmas Day. But I couldn't get the C41 chemicals in the UK.
You have like a big hazardous label on them.
Yeah. But anyway, he sent those over from the US.
Good old Royal Mail.
Thank you so much. I really am looking forward to that. You know what I'm going to be doing over Christmas?
Yes.
I got some rolls of film to develop.
Yes. You're going to dip some pastries in C41?
I'm not going to drink
some
it like you do.
No?
So now
Now.
We're going to talk about flash. See, Andy's pointing out that there's flash compensation and exposure compensation.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that.
So flash compensation is effectively amount of power that flash produces.
Yeah.
And paired down with, let's say, TTL, which is through the lens, where flash communicates with the camera.
So basically auto.
Auto. So that means that if you go plus or minus, if you just increase amount of power, decrease it. So think about dimmable lights in your house.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want it slightly dimmer, you just reduce it. So don't mix exposure compensation with the flash compensation, because exposure compensation affects the exposure, how the image is produced. The flash compensation affects the amount of light that the flash will produce, even it's automatic.
Yeah, and those two things are independent, basically.
They are independent, absolutely.
So good point there. Thank you, Andy, for that. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, we talked about natural light, daytime, nighttime, but we kind of haven't ventured outside the living room yet. So what if you're one of those, I say lucky people. Lucky people who has snow, and you venture.
I know a couple of people in Canada.
Yeah,
lots of snow.
Yeah, well, there were a few people in the Midlands who had snow last week, and various places in Scotland had snow.
Actually, the place I'm from as well has a bit of snow. It's about -25 there right now.
Yeah, but that's not. You mean south?
It's like it's pretty much like around Purley area, but nah.
But you didn't have snow. You didn't have snow.
No, it's near Kazakhstan. Yeah.
There they had snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you are going to go out and take some snowy pictures, for example, then I would say the best thing for that is obviously natural light. You don't need a flash for that.
No.
But there are some tips that what would we advise if you're going to go and take snowy pictures? What's the main problem that you find?
The main problem is that normally you take a shot and the snow comes out quite grey.
Yes.
Especially if you don't have clear sky. Yeah. Comes out grey and dark. And the reason for that being is obviously center weight metering, or 3D matrix metering, measures the scene and compares it to 18% grey.
Yeah.
So white becomes grey. And obviously the darks become a little bit more overexposed as well.
Yeah.
So the problem is obviously if white becomes grey, we need to overexpose it a little bit.
Yes.
So advice there is you can use spot metering if you want to, but B, use your exposure compensation. Again, depending on your light situation, take a shot, quickly check it on the back of the camera, and then adjust accordingly. Once you kind of played with exposure compensation for some time, you will know if it's, let's say, 1/3 of a stop or 2/3 of a stop adjustment.
Yeah, it's definitely a familiarity thing when you're using exposure compensation, or when you're in my case, adjusting the shutter speed by thirds of a stop. It's, starting to recognize and become comfortable with how much light difference there is between one stop and another. So if you are going to take snowy pictures, then use your exposure compensation liberally, I would say. The best kind of snowy pictures, and it's It's funny because you could see how much time I spend on Instagram because there's lots of adverts that I get. One of the ads that I get is like this one-click editor, and basically all it does is it overexposes everything, so it all
Yes.
looks really bright. And so essentially, you can save yourself downloading an app by overexposing in the camera intentionally. So
That's interesting.
yeah, it is interesting, and I think for unexperienced photographers or smartphone photographers who don't understand what settings are being affected in their camera, that is a nice solution, because it's like, oh, I took a shot that looked really dark and then I click this button and then all the
Boom.
pictures are really bright.
Yeah.
But if you actually understand what you're doing with the camera, then you can do that before you ever even chuck it into Lightroom or
Yeah, the good news is the phones now shoot HDR automatically as
Yeah.
well, so they will pull out the shadows and preserve the highlights for you automatically. So, but also about the cameras, I would say if you shoot outside, well, if let's say you're facing the shadow, don't be afraid to use flash. Just fill in flash. What you can do as well with the fill in flash, sometimes it's too bright. What I normally do is I do the flash exposure to -1, so it just uses works as a fill.
So it's just like a little bit of
Gives
light.
the sparkle, give you sparkles in the eyes as well, and just fills the shadow a little bit. And that's pretty much it, without kind of over, exposing the image or making it just look flat.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Baxter points out a really good, in fact, Nick also did. I think great minds think alike there. If you are going to use exposure compensation, and if you are feeling adventurous, and I'm trying to like make this accessible to both people that don't know much about photography, and also a lot of you who are very experienced photographers. But there's a thing in your camera called a histogram. A lot of you will know it. It's one of these funny graphs that looks like that. So when you import your pictures, usually into an editing software, it quite often shows you this graph, and you think, what on earth does that mean? We could cover a whole stream on the subject of reading histograms, but essentially, as Baxter pointed out, if you are going to overexpose your pictures intentionally so everything looks white and dreamy, just be sure or try not to clip your highlights, which essentially means that you're exposing so much that you lose the information in the white areas or the white portions of the frame. It sounds way more complicated than it is.
Yeah, but I'll make it even more complicated. So if you want to get too technical, keep in mind that generally exposure that you see on the back of the camera, the histogram, is from JPEG and not RAW.
That's true.
So keep that in mind.
So
the image, your RAW file, may look different on your computer. Also keep in mind that what you'll learn with the time is not to trust your screen at the back of the camera, because especially outdoors,
don't rely on it.
Yeah, the image may look too dark, but it's actually, when you get indoors, it's going to look very bright and well exposed.
Yeah.
So with the use of the camera, you'll get experience. You will know how to judge that, but don't rely 100% on what you see on the back of the camera.
Yeah, one thing that I have found actually more often is the case is if I'm shooting in very bright light, the picture always looks wrong outside.
Yeah.
Because you look at the back of the screen and you go, no, that's completely, and then you get indoors and suddenly it's actually the camera was correct.
Actually, in the preview settings of your camera, you can set additional information screen, which is called highlight clipping. So you can press playback on the back of the camera, press up to switch from this one information into another one.
Yeah.
And let's say if your highlights are clipped, which is generally skies, they will start flash like black and white.
Some people, when they buy a camera for the first time, they've actually set that by accident and they get this flashing on the back screen. The D200 used to have that as
And then we get all the calls, isn't it?
And then we get the calls of, why is my picture flashing? It's because you've overexposed your highlight, sorry. But yes, Richard, you're quite right. The camera histograms read the JPEG rather than RAW, as Con said. Well done. Now, that's one very good tip for shooting in snow. The other thing is in terms of white balance. So it's going to be more obvious than ever if you've got a dodgy white balance setting when you're shooting in situations where you've got that. You could do a manual white balance reading if you want to, but to be honest, the cameras these days will generally get it right.
Yeah. Again, advanced, let's say, beginner tip, use auto white balance, and maybe switch to RAW.
Yeah.
Instead of JPEG.
So you can just tweak things afterwards.
Exactly. Obviously, if you're an advanced photographer, you can buy a gray card.
Go all out.
You can set it to daylight. You can set it to shadows.
Yeah.
You can also set it via previewing the live view on the back of the camera, so you actually will see a result automatically.
Yep.
But again, being outdoors is sometimes quite difficult to judge. And keep in mind that all those, let's say, tungsten and shadows and, let's say, sun profiles, they effectively are all just settings for color temperature.
Yes.
So effectively, with those things, it's not a wonderful setting that does it for outdoors photography or anything like this. So if you know how the light works, that the light changes throughout the day. So let's say that sunlight setting may work one day, like one way in the morning, and then may not work, let's say, so well in the evening, etc., etc. So I would say auto white balance works really well as long as you shoot in RAW. But of course, if you're advanced photographer, then you can either do a preset or you can use PRE button, PRE setting and white balance as
which
well.
is preset. That's what it's for. In fact, we did do a YouTube video on how to preset your white balance, didn't we?
And you can use A4 piece of paper. And do that close enough to grey cut.
Doesn't have to be hard at all. So so that's just an extra tip for shooting in snow. Quite a few people were saying, I don't get snow in Australia, or I don't get snow down in Cornwall. No, we don't get much snow in London either, thank goodness. But
when did we have snow? Did we have snow last year?
2
years ago.
2 years ago. So it was a year where it was February.
We had that, and I bought a snow shovel. I used it literally for one day. Well, I cleaned the porch for me and my neighbors.
Best investment ever.
Because I'm a good neighbor. And it was so much fun. It's the best £5 I ever spent.
Good. So we haven't had that issue since, but it would be nice to get a little bit of snow just around the time when I don't need to travel, because as soon as you need to travel in England, if there's snow, everything grinds to a standstill. I have to say a massive thank you to Terry for your contribution to the Coffee Fund, and to Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you both of you for your contributions. Very, very kind of you. Now, Paul said he's a new subscriber watching us. Visit to Grays is on his bucket list when things return to normal.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome to the channel.
Yeah, welcome to the channel. We will welcome you with open arms, socially distanced, of course, when everything returns back to normal and you're able to come in. Now, I think we've covered snow. Have we covered snow pretty much? Yeah, I think so. So David asks me, if you were shooting film in the snow, what would you use? I would use a which camera, which lens? This is quite a big question.
This is not a question for me. I'll go.
I would use a very low ISO or ASA film. So probably my go-to is Portra 160 or Ektar 100. Love both of those films. That's color film. I don't shoot black and white very often.
It's a color film. I like how it's a color film. They used to have the color film back in the day, so that's just so you know.
I still have color film.
But I'm a 400 speed person, because again 400 is a good all-rounder, so you can kind of use it indoors and outdoors.
I have both though. Like
you would have two cameras with you. Is that what it is?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I'd probably have the 160 in the FM3A, and I'd have the 400 in the F6. The F6 is just a little bit more of a versatile camera, will meter better indoors, I would say.
What else comes in your huge bag that you bring with
My
you
camera
around
cupboard
Christmas?
that I just put on wheels and I drive.
There's a van that comes with Becky with all the photographic equipment she has.
It would have to be the 3514.
Okay, yeah.
That would probably go on the F6.
Yeah.
And then on the F3, I'd probably put the 55 1.2 or the 105 2.5. That would be those are kind of my...
Not too shabby.
No complaints there. So that's what I would shoot if I was shooting film. Someone's going to tell me that they use something else. But yes, Roy makes a very good point. Thank you, Nick, for your contribution to the Christmas Coffee Fund. Cheers. Roy says a lens warmer to stop lenses from misting up. Now, we had a lovely gentleman who bought a lens this week, and when he opened the box, it was misted over.
Oh, yes.
Because it had been sitting in the depot so long. It was actually, I believe, ice crystals, because it had that strange sort of pattern that you get with
I didn't know that they had depot in Antarctica.
Well, it's been pretty darn cold in certain parts of the UK, so we've had kind of like -3, -4, and if you think
that's not cold.
No, okay, not to you, but to us.
From Russia. So.
But one very good tip is if you are going to go out into the cold and then bring your equipment back in, let it acclimate before you start taking it all out of the bag and stuff like that. Let the bag acclimate. If you're in -3.
I used to go to school at -35.
What point would they say that school couldn't?
At -36,
yeah,
you wouldn't be able to go to school. So we used to listen to the radio at 7 a.m. and if it says -36, you know you're not going to school. So it was
amazing.
so exciting. No, it actually was -32. But at -35, I think it's when you're like 16, you don't go.
Wow.
But then at about 18, you go to uni, and it doesn't matter how cold it is. You still go to
rain
uni.
or shine, you go. Yeah. So acclimating your camera equipment when you come in from the cold is very, very important. If you
leave it to rest for about an hour in the bag. And the same, let's say when you go outside, leave it in the bag for about maybe 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So the temperature will gradually change instead of just being kind of hit by the cold weather.
Exactly.
And another tip is just, maybe get extra battery with you, because batteries do drain a lot faster in the cold weather.
We are talking like we're talking Russian weather though then, because they don't drain that fast in like -3. But if you get down to -10.
-2 is nothing.
That's cold
it's a
to me.
weather.
T-shirt weather. Okay, fine. But
I'll
yeah,
wear my flip-flops right now. So,
and then Bermuda shorts.
Yeah.
But if you are going to go somewhere very cold, a lot of people, we could probably do a whole stream on like shooting in Antarctica or something like that. But batteries do drain faster in the cold, so keep it on you. Moisture does lead to mold, so if you have condensation in your cameras and lenses, try and keep them as clean and dry as possible.
Couple of silica bags in your bag.
Yes.
So they generally come with the new equipment, or you can actually order them on
buy
Amazon
them.
nowadays, or other places.
Exactly.
Keep them in your bag just in case, and in all the cupboards where you store your equipment.
That's right. There's actually a ton of really good tips coming in on the comments there. Some of them we've already said, but anyway, so feel free to have a little read of those, guys, if you want any extra tips on shooting in the cold. Someone was telling me Ilford FP3. I should try shooting some Ilford again.
Is it the black and white one?
Yeah, haven't shot Ilford in a long time, so that's another maybe.
Yeah, I'm what was it, SP5 or what was
FP5 or there's HP5?
HP5. I'm a HP5 man myself.
Yeah,
I like the grain.
Peter's online. Yes, Peter. Hello. Yes, no, gentleman. You are a gentleman. Thank you, Lazy Dog, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Right, so we've done natural light, daytime, nighttime.
Shall we move on to flash?
Snow photos. Let's talk about flash, your favorite subject.
My favorite subject. Okay, so you've got a camera which has a built-in flash.
One of these things.
One of the things, you pop up, you take a shot.
Oh.
And now you're blind.
Flash warning.
And generally, pictures don't come out really well. So let's be honest, it's all kind of looks washed out. You don't get the kind of the ambience from the Christmas lights.
Yeah.
You get a red eye effect.
You get that kind of like hair in the headlamp.
Exactly.
Look.
So it doesn't work really well. But if you are stuck with a built-in flash, there are a couple of things you want to use. On cameras, let's say like 3000 and 5000 series,
yes.
You can try to use a slow sync mode. And what slow sync effectively does, it fires the flash to freeze the subject. So let's say a person in front of you for portraiture, but then it uses longer exposure, because general exposure that flash allows is normally 250s of a second, or it uses the range between 60s and 250s of a second, depending on the lighting conditions. So when you're using a slow sync, it could use exposure up to a second or so. But generally it's about 15ths of a second.
Yeah.
What that means is the flash fires, freeze the subject in the motion, and then the long exposure allows for basically to develop the image and also bring the ambience from those lights.
Right.
The downside of this is if it uses long exposure, like 1 second, you may end up with a bit of motion blur. So the person is going to be sharp. Everything else is going to be slightly moving.
So tripod might be a good idea?
Tripod is a good idea. Or what you can also do is instead of using slow sync mode, you can go to the custom settings of the camera, and instead of, let's say, sync of 250s and 60s of a second, you can lower the sync to about 15ths of a second instead of 60th.
Yep.
And that way the flash will use the range between 15s and 250s of a second for the sync. So this is something that you can do with a built-in flash. And I would say it's kind of a beginner's tip. So I would, let's say, with advanced, I would recommend an external flash, which we'll get to in a moment. But that's what you can do with a built-in flash. I would advise you, if you use built-in flash, maybe move the subject a little bit further away from the tree, so you can leak the person, but not actually the tree, because you want to kind of, use long exposure to get the lights from the tree in.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of things that Joe McNally actually has a few videos on the Nikon USA channel, which I thought were great. He's using a D3500 or 3400, and it's, beginners tips for built-in flash, and they were doing prom pictures. I think that was the kind of the setup, and the shots that we tend to see from built-in flash is very flat, very like the person is stuck against the background, and everything is the same exposure. So he said, pull the subject further from the background, and then you yourself as the photographer stand a little bit further away and then zoom in, because then that way the flash is far enough that it's not going to sort of bleach everything out, but you're still going to get that nice sort of detachment, if you
Exactly,
like, from
you'll
the
get a
background.
nice depth of field, so nice separation. Also, you can use slow sync combined with red eye reduction.
Yeah.
The way red eye reduction flash mode works is obviously in the dark, our pupils expand. So when we actually take a shot with a normal flash, light goes through the eyes, and what the red thing that we see is actually a reflection of the retina, of the back of the retina of the eye. So what slow sync does, it fires a flash first, so it's kind of pre-fires, so sends one pulse. So our eyes naturally become smaller,
Yeah.
so the pupils.
Yeah.
And then it fires the actual flash.
Yeah.
And that way we don't have red eye reduction. To be honest with you, if you work in the post, you can also do reduction, basically
Reduction.
red eyes reduction
It's a nice
in the
little
post.
shortener there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to do in Lightroom and Photoshop these
You
days.
just click on the eye with that tool, and it just basically desaturates the red, and it becomes kind of black.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes people look a little bit scary when you use it and the pupil's
That's
too big.
Yeah, some people do react more to those things. So especially kids, they tend to blink with the red eye reduction. So do keep that in mind. But the best thing you can do with a flash is actually get an external one. And the reason for that being is, well, you don't need to get a very expensive flash. So you can get something like SB500, SB700.
Secondhand SB600
Secondhand SB600.
in my case.
And you can put it on the camera and take a shot. And obviously, this way, again, your image quality is going to be better just because it's more powerful flash.
Yeah.
But
you can also bounce it, can't you?
exactly, you can bounce it over the ceilings, over the walls. So, remember that.
Instead of getting that direct flash, you're actually getting the bounce of the light, which gives you that kind of softer lighting effect.
Correct. And then the best thing is actually to have the camera, well, the flash of the camera. It eliminates the red eye effect straight away. And it also makes your face look more three-dimensional. It's not going to look as flat.
Right, because you're kind of modeling the light a little bit.
So imagine your face is here and the light goes this way.
Yeah.
So suddenly you get this area brighter, this area you get more shadow. So it's definitely you get more a kind of three-dimensional look to it.
Yeah, sure.
Quite easy to set up. Not on the entry-level models, so not 3000, 5000 series cameras, but from 7000 series upwards, well, except 7500. Most of the flash guns will support Nikon Creative Lighting System. And the way it works is the built-in flash fires and sends the signal to the external flash, and that's the way it kind of triggers it. So effectively, flash has to fire in order to trigger the external flash.
And you've got to make sure...
And the light has to basically has to hit this infrared receiver area.
Yeah.
So when you're shooting and when you're holding flash this way, make sure that you don't cover
you don't put your
the
finger
infrared
over
receiver. So the one way to do that is actually rotate the flash this way.
Yeah.
So in opposite direction. So you can literally, well...
But you can't really.
I would do it different. I'm not left-handed. So here you go. You can shoot this way.
Yeah.
So the way you set up your system to work with each other, in the menu of the camera, it's called built-in control, control for built-in flash.
Yeah.
So we actually going to have a video coming out on that. So keep an eye on that. It's probably in about a week or so. Or you will see it.
You filmed it already, didn't you?
We filmed it already. Yeah. It's just it's in editing. It's in the cutting room. But the idea is you set your built-in flash into commander mode. You set your external flash to the slave mode or remote. So one is master, another one is slave.
Yeah, so this one says remote. This is an SB900.
On the SB900, it just says remote.
Yeah.
On some flash guns, you would have to go into the menu.
Yes.
But effectively, let's say the important bit there is they have to be on the same channel in order to fire.
Yes, I've written articles on this. So many people say it doesn't work, and it's actually because you get a choice of 4 channels.
Becky written a whole dissertation.
A dissertation.
On that. 100 pages.
It is.
The thesis, the
80,000
theory
words.
of creative lighting system.
Just has to be on the same channel. So you've got channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just got to make sure that both the flash and the camera are on the same channel. I think we could do a whole... You've done a video. Have you talked about the different groups and everything like that?
No, I kind of done how to quickly set it up.
Okay.
So, but
we can do something
like this. But let's say prepare for the flash now. So this is set to channel 1. This is set to channel 1.
Yeah.
It technically should work.
You're going to blind them.
Here we go. Did it fire?
Yes,
It did.
It did.
Very simple to do. And then imagine what kind of opportunities you can have.
Yeah,
It's
because you
just,
can prop this, as long as it's within line of sight somewhere, you could prop
Exactly.
it on a shelf or... Anyway, I'm going to just read off a couple of the comments here. So, for example, Nick said bounce flash is the most kind form of light from a
Yes.
flash.
Yes.
Terry's SB600 is serving him well. We are SB600 buddies, me and Terry. Nick says he often bounces it backwards in a small room,
Yep.
which is a very nice way to do it, because then basically the light is more diffused the further away it is from the subject, and the thing that you want is the most diffused effect.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about diffusers.
Yeah,
as
the more
well,
it's
right?
diffused, the more natural it looks.
Yeah.
Speaking of diffusers, you can buy, well, Nikon flash guns do come with diffusers, but
SB600 doesn't, but I got
doesn't?
I got a third party
you
one.
can buy a third party one.
I've got one of those
For
too.
my commercial photography for events, well, when we used to have events
Yes,
in
back
this
in the
country,
day.
I use one of those. It's probably a knockoff of Gary Phone, or it
Yeah.
could be a Gary Phone.
I've got the exact same
itself.
one. I have the exact same one at home.
I think this one was like £7 on Amazon.
a bargain.
So you can order one of those. So that's obviously goes
Around there.
and
it gives you really nice. You're gonna have to
now it's
loosen
going to spend
it.
half an hour putting
You
it
have to
on,
loosen
so-
it and flip. Yeah, it does go on eventually.
So you can do that. And then you can also get a reflective panel, which is called Flash Bender. So you can get small one, you can get big one, and effectively you just wrap it around this way.
I've also got one of those.
You set it up, and then effectively light goes up and bounces off the panel. So that way, again, it will help you to diffuse light more.
Yeah.
Also, if you photograph groups of people,
Yeah.
it definitely produces wider and more natural kind of spread.
Yes.
So it does look much better. So for
Yeah.
group photography, I would definitely recommend to you one of those accessories.
Yes.
Very useful and not very expensive.
What is the I'm gonna forget it now, but do you remember in Nikon school we had SB5000s fired into massive softboxes. I can't remember the name of them now, but anyway, there is a brand of softbox that they use, and you can quite literally take the size of light coming from an SB900 or 5000 or whatever, and if you put it into one of these big boxes, it spreads out the light so much that it's completely flattering.
Normally they have some sort of like a foil type surfaces that would help you to reflect it.
There's also
Or
that.
you can also buy an umbrella, and instead of shooting through umbrella, you can kind of turn it backwards and fire from umbrella, so it will spread the light a lot wider.
Spread the light out.
Yeah.
We did during peak lockdown period when I was doing the live streams from home in front of my virtual secondhand apartment. I did a couple of DIY lighting techniques and 7 different types of portrait lighting and stuff like that. So if you are interested in different models of flash, then go and check that out. They're very impromptu looking, so I think we've come a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty of the things is you can have a very portable studio setup.
Yeah.
Which is not very heavy.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can get 2 or 3 flash guns, set them up to different groups. You can have your main light, you can have your side light, you can have the light that, let's say, highlights the background and things like this. You can do all sorts of things like this, and you control all your lights via TTL, so still through the lens, via your camera menu. So keep that in mind. You can take it as advanced as you can. I think Nikon said they can support up to 69 flash guns.
Only.
So that's pretty good. Like I know that's a lot of this stuff has been used for car photography because they can hide those lights inside the car
Of
to
course.
highlight the interior.
Yeah, unlike the big studio lights, which you can't.
That's the
really.
thing. So you can take it to the next level, but just having one external flash and just set it up with a built-in flash, it's quite straightforward. So keep in mind though, if you're shooting with a built-in flash, it still has to fire in order to trigger the other one.
Yeah.
You can set it to dash setting, which is the weakest light output. So, and that should do the good job, but you can also block off the flash with additional accessories.
Yeah, there's one called SG3IR, which is very catchy.
It's about
but it's
£15 or something
yeah,
like this.
it's a little panel that just goes in front. It allows the signal to go out without actually flashing on your subject. It was Luster Light. Thank you very much to everyone, Jonathan and David, who pointed that out. Luster Light softboxes, which are the ones that Nikon School use.
They're quite affordable.
They are. And you can get them really big in different shapes and all kinds of things. So that's some, let's say, artificial lighting for you and some advanced settings that you can give a try. Gray Marks is thinking about getting a 24-200. Would it be a good choice? Well, Con is the spokesperson for the 24-200s.
I think it's great. It's a lens that gives you a very good range at the expense of exceptional image quality.
Yeah.
But the image quality that you get for the money and for the range you get is fantastic. So two lenses doing the same job
Yeah.
probably will do a better job. But if you just want to have all-in-one, it's the best all-in-one lens. So even comparing to f-mount versions of 18 to 300 or 28 to 300, it's
Yeah.
definitely a lot sharper.
We uploaded a review video a few weeks back that Konstantin did on that. So if you're interested in that, then go and check that out. So I think that's covered flash, hasn't it? The last thing is here's my exciting segment that I'm very excited about. So last week, one of lovely friends of the shop, Marguerite, sent me some very interesting pictures. And she said she called them kinetic light portraits, I think was the name that she used for them. And it kind of gave me a bit of inspiration. I'd done a little bit of light painting over the sort of, I would say, Halloween period with pumpkins and sparklers and stuff like that. Yeah, you just can't not have coffee during this time. Oh, I missed someone. Someone contributed. Jeremy, thank you very much for your contribution to the coffee fund. I missed you out. There was like loads of comments after that. So anyway, so Marguerite sent me these pictures and I thought, I did some light painting, but different. So I thought we could maybe have a look at some pictures. Now, full disclaimer, I tried to do some light painting at home. I forgot to do it until this morning at 7 o'clock, by which time my cats had undecorated my Christmas tree. And
they've done a really good job.
They've done a great job of basically removing all the decorations that I painstakingly put on there. So my shots were just not good enough to share. But I did find some lovely ones that I thought would be of interest that we could maybe dismantle a bit and have a look at how they'd done it. So let me get rid of this. Let me remember the shortcut. There we go. So let's have a look at if my keyboard will work. Here we go. Sorry.
All right, so are we going to try to deconstruct them?
Yes, I'm going to move that. I didn't want to move that. I wanted to move this. I wanted to move us over here.
So we're going to be like a commentators.
So now that we're going to commentate on this. So these are essentially long exposures using Christmas lights or lights in general to create a light painting. I really like this one. These are from Pinterest. As I say, I failed to provide you some examples. So I'm going to use examples from other people and credit where credit is due to all these people who've uploaded these. So this is a long exposure of a Christmas tree, and they have rotated the Christmas tree while taking the picture to produce this really interesting effect. What happens if I press that?
So all you have to do is just to spin the tree, isn't it?
You just spin the tree. So you could have someone
Everyone
like, for example,
can do that.
In this picture, obviously the person spinning the tree is on the other side of the frame, so you can't see them
at the same time.
So
like he's like on carousel.
That's right. Kind of. Not really. So that's one thing that you could try. The one that I wanted to do was actually this one. I don't know if there's a Christmas tree behind there, but I'm guessing there is. And I started doing this, but it just...
All right, so let's deconstruct it. So what technique is being used here? What settings?
So we've got a long exposure,
okay,
10, sometimes 20 seconds.
Okay.
But obviously, if you've got a long exposure like that, then you need to have a very tiny aperture.
Yeah.
So f22, for example. And you don't have to be afraid of small apertures for this kind of thing, because when we're shooting landscape and stuff like that, we don't want small apertures because of diffraction, which is where the light hits the aperture blades and then it splits a little bit. So essentially you get what looks like blurry edges. We don't have to worry about that with these light paintings. That's not going to be an issue. This is more of an artistic effect, I would say. So small aperture of f22 or above, long exposure of 10 or 20 plus seconds, and
I guess dark room,
so it has to be dark, and the lowest ISO that you can be comfortable with. It is trial and error for sure, because sometimes you'll find that even at base ISO it's too bright if you've done too long an exposure. So
and then you get the glowing stick. So
and then you get
from
the glow
one of those parties,
from one of those raves.
Exactly, and then you just paint with it.
That's right. So, for example, although
I've got many of those,
you've got so many glow sticks. So what I did, and I can't show you the result. So anyway, let's just.
I mean, it was kind of meh, but
no, it wasn't.
No, it was great. It was great. I've just deleted it.
Don't lie. But I used the torch from my phone for one of them, and I just drew the outline with a 20-second exposure, drew the outline around the tree. As I say, the problem was that my tree looked a bit
But I think
bad.
if you would put an Instagram filter on it, it would just solve all the
It'd
problems.
probably look amazing with an Instagram. I might still do that. And then the other thing that I did was I have So hipster. I have a masonry jar
Yes. You're a hipster.
of fairy lights that is a decoration on one of my shelves.
I have glowing sticks and Becky has mason jars.
All year round, I have these fairy lights in a mason jar, and I actually just lit them and also decorated the tree with them, the outline of the tree.
Really cool.
It looked really cool, but it was a bit messy because I was also trying not to. The cat was trying to leap and grab the light. Everything is for them. They're like 10 weeks old, so at the moment there's just no controlling them. So that was the concept I was going for. It didn't work for me because I had to do it before the school run this morning, and it didn't.
So
didn't
first kind of advice is don't do it at 7 a.m.
Don't do it at 7 a.m. when the sun's already starting to come up and you've got about 15 minutes before you've got to get the packed lunches ready. But if you've got a bit of time over Christmas, and I will have a bit more time to do this, I did some great ones with sparklers and pumpkins over Halloween. So
the basic idea behind it is obviously it's a long exposure, so everything is dark.
Yes.
So think that like a Polaroid, the image is slowly developing.
yeah,
And by introducing a very bright element, so glowing stick,
Yes.
it's much brighter than anything else.
Yeah.
And by moving it at the slow exposure, it's recording that movement. So if you saw those photographs with like recent words like love and etc.,
Yeah.
so that's exactly how it's done.
Exactly.
You get a very bright element and very dark area, and you're moving it so the camera records it.
Exactly. So this one, for example, this poor lady had to stand still for a very long time.
That's another level.
But I love this
like a
because
superhero.
she's wearing fairy lights and she's got a star, but obviously someone has gone behind her with a green light source. Like
Someone who was wearing all black.
yeah. But see, the thing is that when I did it this morning, I was wearing this jumper at that point, and the light reflected off the sequins, so there were little sequin elements on the side. It literally will pick up all of the light in the frame. So, but this is quite fun. This was probably a slightly shorter exposure. I would say 10 seconds. 10 seconds is enough, actually, to create a light painting. It depends on how much space you need to cover in that time, but 10 seconds can be enough.
Yeah.
With the
And
right
this can
distance.
be shot on any camera.
Yeah.
D40.
Yeah, exactly. It
D60,
doesn't matter.
any-
Anything that you can shoot. I mean, any DSLR will do it. In fact, some of the smaller compact cameras will shoot at those long exposures if you know how to do it. So I thought that this would be quite fun. I'm definitely going to be doing more of this. Now, another long exposure, which I thought was quite interesting, is this one. This is actually, okay, this is obviously pre-COVID because there's lots of people in that church. But this is a candle procession in Salisbury Cathedral, I think it is. And so the person has possibly done 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes of exposure as they've walked with candles down this long procession. And then they must have, I would assume, used something like a big stopper, something like that.
Yeah, it could work. Yeah, absolutely.
In order to get that long exposure, because you can't really do that, I would say, unless you're shooting. I mean, even at f22, you can't get to 3 second exposure.
It does look like a kind of a cityscape in a way, but instead of, let's say, car lights, you get all these candle lights trays. So,
yeah, exactly.
So it is very much similar setup, and so yeah, as you say, it could be that they use some sort of a stopper for basically to allow for longer exposure.
Yeah, so it's a neutral density filter, basically, in order to stop the camera from overexposing. You put a sort of almost opaque filter on there so that you get less light.
And if, let's say, we can't zoom into the image, but if you start to zoom in, actually you won't see the kind of details on people's faces just because it was such a long exposure.
Like on my screen, for example, I can see the motion of people's heads and things like that. So obviously people were turning and stuff, but that's quite cool. And I thought it was quite Christmassy. Now, another method you could use is this one. I always wanted to try this.
It's a fun one.
This is a fun one because essentially you're taking a picture of the tree, and then while you're taking the picture, and again, this would be a shorter exposure, but while you're taking the picture, you zoom out. So then the lights do that sort of movement, or sort of movement, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a good fun. Again, it's a trial and error. You may need to take something like 10 to 20 shots to achieve similar results, but it's quite fun.
I would say you could probably achieve this in about 5 seconds, maybe. It doesn't even have to be a really long exposure. The room itself is quite bright, so also then you don't have to use as small an aperture.
I think it's even fast exposure, because if the room is fairly sharp, so you're looking maybe at 1 second exposure, and then you zoom out really fast
really
when you
quickly
do that.
while you're doing it.
And I guess you're on a tripod, so that way the room is still stay sharp, because it would be difficult to do it handheld.
Yeah, exactly. So shorter exposure, but this is a slightly different technique.
It's a nice fun picture.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And then, so we had some other methods of light painting. This is one that you took, actually. So this is you moving. I think we showed this on one of our streams.
Yes. So this is it's not really Christmassy, but the idea is the same. So I wasn't on tripod. So all I did is actually I took a picture with a flash. So flash froze the subject, and then I moved my camera. It was about maybe 1 to 2 seconds exposure. To get the movements in the frame. So the person is fairly sharp and frozen in the moments, and then we get this kind of nice motion blur at the back.
So, and then let me just
There's another one which
there
is
is, I'm just trying to remember if it's backwards or forwards.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. So this is another one. Again, you move the camera. And I like the fact that the lights have their own little shape. Like you could have even gotten swirly whirly pans.
Yeah, so instead of moving lights, I move the camera.
Yeah. So this is where I got the inspiration from, was actually, I think this next picture is one of yours. This is a very nice boat. Is this a Christmas tree?
It's a Christmas tree. It's just basically, well, it's not in focus.
Yeah.
And you used a very shallow depth of field. So therefore, that's, those bubbles that you see, effectively, that's effective. It's a good fun. I think it was something like 1.4, and it was just focused on the closest focusing distance.
No, it's going to be interesting. Coloured lights particularly, I think, are good for this. I have on loan the 51.2 Z lens. I know, and this could be great.
You didn't tell me.
No, because we just got it. I haven't told you yet. Sorry. Just so you know, I got 51.2.
Can I get 14 to 24?
Gonna loan it. So these are from Marguerite. She very kindly sent them over. She sent quite a few actually, but I love and this is moving the camera. Again, so this is what she described as kinetic light painting, which I think is a really nice way to describe it. But moving the camera as opposed to the subject.
So that's like another level.
I think these are great. They're so kind of.
They almost look like they're computer generated.
Yeah, exactly, which is really interesting.
It's all done in camera.
So if you want to try something a little bit different and create these shapes with coloured lights and stuff like that, then that's an idea for you. Again, you're using what was the exposure that you're using? 2 or 3 seconds? Something like that?
Yeah, I think it was 1 to 2 seconds. Yeah, because otherwise it would get just too blurry, even on the subject.
Yeah, and if you are going to do something where you've got the person standing still and then you want the lights moving around them, then you do have to ask them to be very still. Otherwise, they're going to be blurry too. But I thought that was a rather nice idea, something for you to try. If you have any questions on that, let us know. I'm just having a look at. So Sharif says, for some reason I know why that hasn't come up. It's because of a typo, but you just need to time the zoom out to the shutter speed and use a tripod. So that's with the zooming out thing. Now,
it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. Try rear sync. This blurs car and bus lights, giving a trail behind the object.
Yes. So you sync just at the time where shutter is about to get closed.
This is for flash, though.
That's for flash.
Yeah, because you can't do that with without using flash. But yeah, so if you want to freeze the motion, but then still have the trail of light.
Because otherwise you basically record the light first, so light goes across the car instead of being behind the car.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Baxter points out, and I've seen a few people do this. So there is a company that actually make these little cutouts, I think, or they make where you can change the shape of the bouquet.
Yeah, but you can do them yourself. Just buy some cardboards or foam board and just get a scalpel and
cut the shape that you want.
Very easy to do.
Little hearts and things like that, and you put them on the front of the lens.
Gosh.
It's been a long time since I've done that.
You can put, for bouquet you can do this, or you can also put it, let's say, in front of the light source, and you can create really nice shade, kind of shadows as well.
Oh, lovely.
They got a proper name, but it escaped my mind at the moment. So.
Baxter says, have a look at Eric Pear on YouTube. I might do that with my cup of coffee after the stream while we're preparing for the next stream. Try a zoom burst and then a flash at the end. That could be quite fun. We still have our drive folder, which is accessible to anyone who wants to add their pictures. So if you have some examples or ideas that you would like to share, then please do drop them into the drive folder. We would love to see them. Sparklers at a wedding. Yeah, I did during New Year's Eve, not last year, but the year before. We did some light painting with sparklers outside and stuff, and we did stars and
that's
stuff.
Good fun.
It is fun, and if people are wearing dark colours, all the better. There was a phase on Flickr where people, back when I used Flickr, when people were doing these.
Yeah.
They were doing orbs basically,
Yeah,
and
and
they
you,
look like
you can see my photography on MySpace as well. So just
Thanks. Yeah, I know, it's a bit old school. No, a lot of people still use Flickr. I just don't have an account anymore. I've got an old account. But they were doing these sort of light spheres, and then they would go to really derelict places.
Are you
and
still
then
on Windows 95?
No,
No?
it's really
Okay.
silly. Sam says, check out Light Painting by Michael Basanko. I've got lots of people to go and check out. Maybe Cat got to their tree. It was probably in reference to one of the pictures that I showed, actually, but yes. Flash. I'm just trying to see if there's any more comments about that.
But I'm glad that people kind of contribute to
Yeah,
what we said. So
absolutely.
so when people watching our stream, they can check the chat as well,
Exactly.
and they'll get inspiration, so they can come and visit, let's say, those YouTube channels or read those articles. So
That's
it's great.
right.
Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
That's right. Yes, there are also lens babies which give you creative bokeh and very creative depth of field.
You can even get filters as well.
Yeah, you can.
All sorts of things you can add. So it really depends up to you how creative you want to be. So you can just start with a, let's say, general portraiture.
Yes.
And then add different gizmos to it.
Exactly. And I think the thing is that because everybody celebrates this time of year differently, some people don't celebrate at all, some people are by themselves, some people are with family. These little methods that we've given you and that you are all contributing and adding to just give you something to do over this time period when maybe lots of things will be shut and you've got a bit of spare time.
Yeah, what are you going to do for Christmas, Bex?
I'm going to be answering the shop emails.
Oh, well,
catch up on my inbox. No, I am I'm with the family. As you know, I've got 2 boys and 2 cats and 2 rabbits. So there's plenty going on.
That's very nice.
In the Genesi household. Your Christmas is in January, isn't it?
My Christmas in January.
Do you celebrate twice?
I'd celebrate twice. So it's obviously my wife's Christmas first, then we have New Year, then we have Orthodox Christmas.
Amazing.
So, and I have a big plans to finish my book on my USA trip.
Photo book.
The pre-COVID trip. Yes.
Oh wow! Yes, I saw some of the shots from that. So getting yourself to into some projects, finishing off projects is a good time to do it. And as Christmas here falls on Friday, we've got like a little extended bank holiday thing. So good time to be creative. There we go. I think that's pretty much covered everything. I'm just trying to have a quick look. Wool, wire wool, a length of string, and a box of matches. I'm okay. Is that? It sounds like a MacGyver.
I don't know where it's all going.
A MacGyver-esque sort of creation. But yes, please do share your images if you have them. I think it's time to draw the winner out of the bag.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me pass it back to you.
One more. There's one more. Someone got in there at the last minute.
Last second. Good timing.
Yeah.
All right, well, you'll do the honors.
I will do the honors
I did last time.
I don't yet have shots from the 51.2. It literally arrived today, and I'm going to take it with me and start shooting with it, Jonathan. So as soon as I've got shots, I will start uploading those to my
Instagram. Big
Instagram.
bag, Becky. So
really big. That's a lot of names.
Yeah. So Tony Hurst's book, amazing stuff.
I was going to say,
so
do you want me to hold
this.
it? I'll hold it right there.
And let me shake it for you.
Yeah, give it a good shake.
All right.
Okay.
Close your eyes.
I don't need to close my eyes. I can't see anything in the bag anyway. This is Mark Hunter.
Hey,
well done, Mark.
Well done, Mark.
For winning the Tony Hurst book. Please do send an email to... We have a new email address, people. It's media@graysofwestminster.co.uk. So send over your address to media@graysofwestminster.co.uk. That is the email address to use for all things...
absolutely. Can I do a plug for the podcast?
Please do.
So for our new show, if you've got some interesting Nikon news to share or that you think that we might find interesting, do send it to media, because obviously we prepare every week for it. So if you see something interesting, please do send them to us. Yeah, send it over to media@graysofwestminster.co.uk. We're looking for general Nikon photographic news, anything Nikon really, tidbits, stuff like that. We're very interested. So, and if you have any suggestions as well, what you want us to talk about on the future streams, what video you want us to make, etc., etc., it all helps. Any how-tos that you're missing, absolutely, that you'd like. Absolutely, we are running out of how-tos, so do tell. I think there's no shortage, but it's just what do you need to know that we struggle with. So so Mark, please drop us an email and we will get this sent out to you. And very well done for winning. We have one more stream till Christmas, Con. One more.
One more. Next week's stream is the last stream before Christmas, so we have something planned for that.
Yes. Do we?
We do. I have something planned for that. It's going to be great.
For that one, do wear your Christmas jumper.
We would like you to participate. We will also be wearing... You have an even more garish Christmas jumper for next week.
Yes, I've prepared.
I'm looking forward to that.
So this is just a kind of a warm-up, a starter, I would say.
Just a teaser, taste of what's to come.
It gets worse. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you for all your wonderful comments and contributions. We will see you for the last stream of the year. Last stream of 2020. It's almost over. And then we will be back on the 8th of Jan. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, wonderful week ahead. And we will see you very soon.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.